So there are three rules of conversations with smokers. All right. Before we dive into the specific questions that you can ask and the way that you ask them, the order and the way in which you're going to do that, you have a very strong framework now for how to help people in terms of your mindset, in terms of a deep appreciation of the journey that smokers take, the 2 points in their life they have to go to, the 2 moments of change, the role that smoking has played for them. And because of this, you can remember these three rules. Firstly, don't be trying to force and change. Secondly, listen deeply with compassion and curiosity. And three, be the person who helps them tap into their aspirations about what they want in life. So let's look at these in a little bit more detail. All right. We don't want to be antagonizing people. We don't want to be triggering defenses. We don't want to be forcing them. We certainly don't want to be pushy. We don't want to try and change their minds directly. Why? Because we're just going to trigger defenses. All right. Most people think that if they can just turn up and tell people, oh, I've got this great idea. Why don't you do this? That's going to somehow change things. All right. And you've seen throughout your life, this completely doesn't work. There are questions that can do the work. Questions do the work when you're in the right state. What state is that? The state of curiosity and compassion, of deep fascination. All right. You're fascinated in this other person. You're fascinated in the role smoking's played in their life. You're fascinated by their dreams and their aspirations. When you are fascinated by everything that they are bringing to bear in this conversation, well, you know what? They'll start to become fascinated too, because their mirror neurons will pick up on that fascination. So it's really, really important that you don't try to be pushy, that you don't try to force anything. And this is really, really important because it's something we know. You've experienced salesperson who's trying to force something on you. You've experienced politicians trying to, you've experienced all manner of people doing that, even well-meaning people, even well-meaning people who you trust, who have a great idea for you. When it is presented to you in the form of, oh, you really should do this. How appealing is that, really? So don't do that, right? That's just, and this is something to be mindful of because it's just a habit that is ingrained into us in our society, all right? And a lot of people will be doing this, okay? And so breaking that habit for yourself is going to be key to helping others, all right? And if you make suggestions and you find yourself falling off the wagon, don't judge yourself for it, all right? Just be mindful and come back again. And eventually what will happen is you will let that pattern will dissolve, that pattern will disappear, okay? Secondly, remember, look, you want to listen with curiosity and compassion, all right? Here's how not to do it. Have your mobile phone on the table, be picking it up and looking at stuff, asking questions, and then checking emails and messages in between whilst looking up, once every 30 seconds to that person. Your phone should be down, ideally not anywhere not even on the table, not visible. There's research around this, by the way. People feel more listened to when their mobile phone is not even visible. And you're there and you are paying attention to the other person. Okay. And when we get into asking questions, you'll literally maybe just ask one and sit back. You're going to be saying less probably than you've ever said before in your life. Why? Well, look, if you want somebody to be reflective, if you want to help somebody to reach a moment of insight inside their life, how are they going to do that if they just got this big monologue of somebody talking over them? Much easier if you're the person who is asking questions and just sitting there and listening to them. I mean, listen, as somebody who's worked now for well over 2 decades helping people transform, I can tell you that a major part of this is folk feeling that they're actually heard and listened to. because it doesn't happen in their families, doesn't happen with their friends. They do get a certain amount of support from them, but people don't sit there and actually take the time to listen and really hear them. So when you can do this, well, it's deeply transformative. So you show you care. You take an interest in their answers, and you're not afraid to follow up on anything that they seem to care about. Okay. It's not an FBI interview. You're not. So when was this? When did this happen? When did that happen? At what point? At what time did you start smoking? And when did you start smoking after that? How old were you? And what were you doing when you smoked? And why did you do that? All right. This is not the way we're going to be doing it. All right. When you do ask the questions, you'll ask one, and you'll be sitting back, hopefully not saying too much, for several minutes. You can just nod, you can look, because you are not being pushy, and you're listening with full attention and compassion. And then thirdly, you're going to help them with their aspirations. All right. As we get into the questions here, the final kind of aspect of the questions that you're going to be asking will help them to envisage and create the life that they want to have happen without smoking. And whilst there can be a temptation to hurry to get to them, you do not want to be doing that. All right. And these questions, just to be really, really clear, you may ask them over a period of weeks or months. All right. It doesn't matter. It's far better to spend time asking follow-up questions about the initial question that you ask whilst listening. Because the more you listen, the more you'll connect. And the more they'll take these questions seriously. Because remember, we're helping people go through this reflective process, this metacognition, where they can have a deeper awareness of their awareness as they're looking back at their life and looking back at the role that this old habit has played and how long it's been there for them and what this has done. And to get them to that point, we really, really need them to be in a very positive space. We need them to be in a very we need them to feel that the future is going to be so much better than the past ever was. But you can't just rush there. All right. They have to, it's kind of like trying to learn to run when you're very out of shape. All right. It's going to take some time to build up the stamina, the muscles, the tendon strength, even the psychological side, the mental side, which is so important for, say, doing longer runs. And so to help people doing that, by accepting them as they are and listening carefully, by showing you care, by following up and modeling for them a deep sense of curiosity and fascination about the insights and awarenesses that they're having, that will help you to develop a deeper sense of awareness and a deeper sense of interest yourself in what they're saying. But more importantly, because you're going through that process and you're modeling it for them, they will start to internalize that. And as they internalize that, well, there'll come a point where shaping their dreams is very, very easy, because you'll be asking questions for them, but just don't be in a hurry to get to those questions, because look, somebody starting from scratch simply can't go out and run a half marathon or a marathon. All right, not without risk of exhaustion or injury. You need to build up to it. As a general rule, most people starting from nothing who are out of shape, they've got to take a little bit of time to build up for that. That time's going to vary, and it may be a lot shorter than you think, but there's going to be a certain way to approach that that's probably going to certainly statistically it's going to work for most people, okay, given their own intrinsic motivation to do that. So if you remember not to be pushy in the way that you're approaching questions. So you let the questions do their work, and the questions work because you're bringing this approach of curiosity and fascination and not trying to change the other person or judging them. You're listening with compassion now. At a certain point, and maybe in this conversation, a follow-up one, and maybe some way down the line, you can start to shape these dreams, if you will, because that's what the final set of questions will do. Okay, just don't be in a hurry to get to them. The more you listen, the more you'll connect, and the more they'll take these questions seriously. All right, it's like we're trying to get them in the slipstream of the questions that we're asking. And more than the questions, it's the slipstream of this general attitude of, this is really interesting. Your life is really interesting. This is a really fascinating aspect of your life. Let's consider it from this place of fascination and see what we can learn. And let's see how these learnings and lessons from this can empower the rest of your life. All right. But we just need to help them to join that. Okay. And for them to kind of, be able almost like to do that, to join in and to piggyback on that, we have to kind of lead ourselves from the front. And that's a beautiful place to be. So just remember, firstly, don't try and force any change. Secondly, be there fully focused, no mobile phone, no distraction, give them 100% of your attention. And then 3, when the time is ready, and that may be later on in the same session, or it may well be some other subsequent conversation. There's no rush to get to this, but you're going to help them to start to build kind of like a 3D model of the future, of how good it's going to be. And this is a kind of a life that they aspire to. Smoking won't be in that, but it's going to be something that's way, way better. That's so compelling that really, it's kind of like, would you like to stay in this dark, cold hole in the ground, immersed in cold, dirty water, or would you like to have a relaxing time in the Caribbean, in a beautiful 5-star hotel, relaxing on the beach? That's the kind of sort of the strength of the way that it's going to be eventually, in terms of how they're going to feel about it and perceive it, as long as you approach it in the right way and as long as you remember these 3 questions.